won 9 out of their last 10 games. Obviously, AD playing amazing on defense. He's been everywhere. That game against Cleveland, especially against guys like Mobley and Allen, who were, games like this kind of perplex you because you realize that AD, when he wants to, can kind of do whatever he wants, even against big guys. But he really struggles against guys like Sabonis and guys like Jokic who really know how to use their body and can kind of push him around a little bit. But Allen and Mobley didn't really do that. AD, despite not getting some calls again. I don't know what it is right now. I know the NBA is trying to prep to go into the playoffs and have these teams not complain about calls constantly and play through contact and stuff. But at the same time, like, AD and LeBron go to the rim a lot, and they get hacked a lot, and it's not called a lot. Like, and people talk about how many Lakers free throws there are, but last night there weren't really that many, and that's because they weren't really calling it. It was happening. The contact was happening. They just weren't really calling it. So it's kind of interesting to see that dynamic play out with the way the referees have kind of adjusted as we move further into the playoffs. The Lakers are playing really well, but the problem is they still need help because they lost those games to the Kings, like 2 within the last month, within the last several weeks. Now they don't have the tiebreaker with the Kings. So even though they're the same record, basically, the Kings have to finish with at least one loss more than the Lakers for them to actually be above them in the standings. And obviously the Pelicans have been kind of sliding down the standings now, and that's great for the Lakers because they have the tiebreaker over the Pelicans. So they're going to be able to win that even if they had the same record. The tiebreaker puts them over the top because they're head-to-head matchups. And they actually finished the season against the Pelicans, which is another game that they could get that's a direct. So they could be down a game with the Pelicans going into that and then beat them and flip over them, right? Which is good because none of us really want to see the Lakers and the Warriors in a play-in game because it eliminates one of them, right? You would rather see each one of them kind of get in the 7 and an 8 and then have a push because it'll push those other teams, like, because then anything can happen, because if you've got the Warriors and Lakers going up against teams like OKC and Minnesota, the Warriors and Lakers could win those series, right? What you don't want is either one of those teams against Denver, because Denver will probably wipe them out. Although we'll see, Jamal Murray's been out. But even then, with KCP and Gordon and the length they have, and then what obviously Jokic can generate an offense, whether he's scoring or dishing or diming or whatever it is, they've got a really good system in Denver. But trust me, the Lakers haven't forgot all the crap Denver talked last year, right? Denver got beat by the Lakers on their way to the 2020 title. And last year, when they swept the Lakers in 4 really close games, they were doing nothing but talking. Like, they act like they won the title after they beat the Lakers, right? And they acted like that was really what their title was. And so I don't think LeBron and AD are going to forget that if they go up against them again. But I just don't think the Lakers have the size to beat Denver. Because if AD gets in any kind of foul trouble, who are you going to put on Jokic? Rui? LeBron? No, they're too small. They're not going to be able to do anything. And then you're just going to allow layups. You're going to get a lot of second chance points by Denver, which is how they always beat the Lakers. They always beat the Lakers with second chance points. It's not that the Lakers can't stop them once. It's that they get 4 tries every time they go down the court with offensive rebounds until they eventually make a basket. And then the Lakers inevitably will go into some kind of drought, just like they did against the Cavs. It allowed the Cavs back into the game, where they can't hit a shot for their life for 10 minutes for some weird reason that nobody understands. And that's because they're shooting too many outside shots. They fall in love with the 3 because they're making them, and then they keep taking them, and then keep missing them, and then eventually you get into a drought because they're long shots. Even the best shooters in the world go into drought. Steph Curry will go into a drought where he doesn't hit many shots for a 10-minute period. It's going to happen. So LeBron, and the Lakers need to clean up their careless turnovers, because that could have cost them a lot of these games that they just won, where they kept letting teams back into games because LeBron's just like, oh, I'm going to try this crazy pass to make the crowd go, ooh, ah. No, you don't need that. You don't need it. I understand it's Showtime and they're the Lake Show, but they don't need to do that. So I think the Lakers just need to continue to be locked in. They really need to win this game against Minnesota tonight, because that will continue to apply pressure to the Kings to have to win. And the Kings play the Nets today, which is probably a pushover of a game, unless the Kings just don't show up. Or don't actually make their way into the arena. I don't see how they're going to lose that game, because we just played Brooklyn and the Lakers didn't even look interested and still won that game pretty handily. So I think the Kings will do the same, because they're a really good team. They do have some injuries right now. Fox isn't playing his greatest. Monk's out, and some other guys are out. I think Huerter's out too now for the Kings. So there's some opportunity there if the Nets actually show up to play and want to play and aren't just throwing the ball to Cam Thomas to launch a 30-foot 3 every single play. But we'll see what happens. Maybe they can get it together. Obviously, Lonnie Walker can score. We know that, as he was on the Lakers last year and helped them win the series against Golden State with that Game 4 performance Steph Curry said he would never forgive him for. So the Lakers have a lot going for them right now. I really think they need to focus these next few games on getting Austin Reeves shooting better. They need to put him in opportunities where they run a set for him where he's wide open, or get him open somehow and let him start figuring this out, because he has not been shooting well from outside lately. Even his mid-range shot has not been great. He's been doing a lot of driving to the basket, though, which I respect, because that's what you should do when you're not shooting well, is try to get yourself going that way or with free throws or whatever. And that's the other thing the Lakers have right now that they're not doing well, is shooting free throws. They had went through a stretch this year where they had shot free throws really, really well, and right now they are not shooting as well. So they need to get that back on track. They keep stepping up and missing 2 free throws when they really need them in games, and then they have to like put their starters back in and stuff. It's like, you know, in the playoffs, that's not going to work. You have to make your free throws. You definitely have to make 1 out of 2. 2 out of 2 is great, but you at least got to make 1 when you go to the free throw line. I mean, that's just that's a gimme. You have to do that, and so they're going to have to figure out their free throws. Whatever is causing them to not make those free throws, they need to get that figured out now. Gabe Vincent, I'd like to see, you know, like the next few games, they need to win, but they also need to try to get Spencer, Gabe Vincent, and Austin into some kind of a rhythm, right? And maybe that means a little bit less D'Lo with the ball. Maybe that means a little bit less LeBron with the ball. Honestly, LeBron even sitting out 1 or 2 of these games, I wouldn't be real upset about. I know they're trying to win for positional reasons, but you know, any of the games like tonight against the T-Wolves and against the Pelicans, I would definitely play LeBron. But any of the games they have in between that are against teams that are under 500, I would sit him and try to get Gabe Vincent, Spencer Dinwiddie, and Austin Reeves going, because you need those guys at certain times in the playoffs. There's going to be times where they have to hit shots. Those guys need to go. Spencer's getting closer and closer, it seems like, but it's so frustrating because when he does his catch and shoots, he catches the ball and he goes up and it's always a straight shot exactly at the rim, and it's always short every single time. So they need to practice with him. I'm sure Phil Handy's working with him, and he just needs to get arc. He just needs arc. If he just had a little bit of arc on that shot, it would go in every time, because it's straight and it hits the front of the rim every time. It's so frustrating when you watch Spencer shoot, because he hits the front of the rim every single time. You're like, dude, just arc the shot. Arc the shot. Follow through. Up. Follow through. Arc the shot, right? You know, and I know he's maybe not normally a catch and shoot type of guy. He's usually more a create off the dribble kind of guy, which he's good at. And when he gets in the rhythm so far with the Lakers, it's because he's had the ball in his hands and he's able to do that. He can hit a catch and shoot once in a while, but you could tell that he's still kind of, you know, perfecting that part of his game, and so he's trying to figure that out, because normally with Brooklyn, you know, he had the ball in his hands a lot. With Dallas, he had the ball in his hands a lot, and he rarely has the ball in his hands here. And when Gabe Vincent gets the ball, he's almost immediately getting rid of it to somebody, because he's almost afraid to shoot because he's out of rhythm from having not played for months on end and stuff. So, which is a real thing. People go, oh, well, that's not a real thing. These guys are pros. Oh, no, that's a real thing. Rhythm is absolutely a real thing in basketball. So is physicality. People, oh, basketball's not physical. Yes, it is. Trust me, it is. I have the marks and scars to prove it from a lifetime of playing. Trust me, it is a physical game. And rhythm matters. You have to be in a rhythm. You have to feel good about what you're doing. And your body has a real muscle memory that happens when you're playing well, and your body knows what that feels like. You know, even on a floater, your body knows exactly when you can feel when it's too long or too short when you let it go out of your hand. You can feel that. It's a real feeling thing. I don't know if it's just muscle memory or if it's just your cognitive connection to your muscles, but there's a real thing in basketball where you like, that's why a lot of times you see a guy shoot and he'll run after the ball, because he's the first one that knows he missed it. You know when it's out of your hand, no matter how it looks to anybody else, you know if you made it or not. And these pros, they know, you can tell as soon as it comes out of their hand if they made it or not, unless it bounces on the rim 7 times and falls, and they're like, oh, whatever, and they laugh, right? And that's because that's just kind of a lucky shot. But for the most part, you know, rhythm, timing, that's all a real thing in basketball. You know, your plays have to be timed correctly. You know, the passes have to be timed correctly or they get intercepted. Especially those pocket passes between 2 guys, like those are risky passes in the first place, and if they're not timed right, then the other team most assuredly is going to steal them. And that's the stuff you can't get away with that in men's basketball. Sometimes in women's basketball you can, because they're not as aggressive in the passing lanes in women's basketball. Like they kind of let the passes go and then they figure it out. And sometimes the more aggressive ones will still play passing lanes, but the passes that you get away with in women's basketball, you can't get away with in men's basketball, because those guys are all looking for it, and they're all long and lanky, and they're all able to get to those passes if they go through certain lanes. So it's kind of interesting, the differences in those games too. Sometimes when you watch them, it's a different game almost, the way that it is. That's why it's so funny when people talk about Caitlin Clark playing in the NBA, because you're like, it's not even the same thing. Like there's a basket and a ball, and that's about where it ends. And there's 5 people on each team. That's about where the similarities end. It's just a whole different game when you have guys that can dunk and do the things athletically. It just becomes, you run different plays because of the capabilities of the players and their physical attributes. It's just a whole different thing. Not to say anything bad about women's basketball, because it's amazing too. It's actually harder X's and O's wise sometimes because they have to scheme people open because of the lack of that athleticism, right? I mean, there are athletic people that play in the WNBA and in women's basketball in general, but it's not to the same level. And so the play designs and all that have to be crisper and cleaner, and the cuts have to be better. And so they have to really, the things that you can make up for athletically, when it's not exactly right, you can't make up for as much. So that means you have to be really on point, which is actually very impressive. So it's not to demean anybody or say anything bad. I think those are really good things too, for the women's game, and it shows that how important all those things really are. The Lakers need to just continue to roll, right? For them to get in the playoffs and do the same kind of push they had last year, they're obviously not going to have home court in a series if they can get out of the play-in, whether that's through getting out, ranking up to 6 or higher, which I don't know if that can happen. They would pretty much have to win all their games left and have some help to get into the 6. But what they need to do, though, is try to stay in the 7-8, and that's so that they don't play the Warriors. And they also need to hope that Denver can get their way back up to the 1 seed so that the 1 will play the 8, which would be whoever's playing the Warriors behind them, and that team plays Denver. I'd rather see the Warriors Denver than Lakers Denver if it has to go that way. But right now, it's almost looking like, because of the injuries to Denver, that they're dropping down to the 2, and that means that the winner of the 7-8, which is now where the Lakers are, so Denver keeps mirroring them. If they're in the, so they fought forever to get out of that 1-8 potential matchup by being in the 9-10 play-in game, and now they're in the 7-8 play-in game matchup, and now Denver's dropped down to the 2, so they'd still get Denver, right? And I think, if I'm Denver, I'm looking at that and going, great, we'd love to play the Lakers again, right? Because we beat them last year, but we'll see. I mean, LeBron is looking a lot better this year than he was coming off that foot injury last year. I know he still deals with some lingering stuff from that, but I'm not convinced that the Lakers can't beat anybody in a 7-game series. I mean, I'm just not convinced of that. I mean, Denver would definitely be tough, and that one would probably go 7, and I don't think it would be a sweep like last year because I think LeBron is not as hurt as he was last year. But we'll see. We'll see what happens, and I like the perimeter defense a lot more. Having guys like Spencer and Gabe on this team really help the Lakers on defense. It probably isn't going to help their offense that much. That's why I'm saying they need to get these guys into a rhythm in these next few games if they can, so that they can hit some shots and actually help them when they need it. If they could somehow get Christian Wood or Vando back, that would help so much on defense, just with these big wings. And then if you're playing somebody, they could put Vando on somebody like Jamal Murray and just shut him down, as opposed to, I do like Gabe and Spencer on defense. They're long, lanky guards, but they're still guards. So when you have these other guys right now, LeBron has to go over there and take them, which is not going to help him on offense. And the Lakers are going to need his offense. Make no doubt, right now they're playing well, but there's going to be times where D'Lo's not making shots and Austin can't hit a shot, and they're going to need LeBron to go in there and keep them out of these long droughts that stop the Lakers from being successful a lot of games. You can't go up 20 on a team and then not score for 10 minutes. You just can't do that. It's just not going to work. You have to, and LeBron's the guy that can stop that, because even AD is not so aggressive sometimes on offense, and he kind of almost feeds off LeBron or off of easy chance opportunities to get himself going. But there's a lot of times where they'll be down 10, AD grabs and takes a fadeaway jumper, and you're like, why did you do that? Like, don't do that. Go inside, because you need guaranteed buckets, and LeBron can get you guaranteed buckets by driving. And either driving and kicking or driving himself. And they really, really are going to need that moving forward. And that's what to look for, really. They need to get Gabe going, Spencer going, and Austin going as much as humanly possible over these next 4 games. And they need to make sure that LeBron is healthy, so that when they get into the playoffs and they have some of these scoring droughts, LeBron can be the guy that ignites the fuse to keep them going until they can get back on a roll with hitting shots again. So we'll see what happens, guys. But I think the Lakers are in a really good place. I like how much they locked in against the Cavs defensively when they had to, but they need to be more consistent about it, and everybody on the team needs to be doing it, not just a few guys. If they can lock in that way, then they can beat anybody on defense. Defense is all it's about, and if you have defense, it'll help you get out of scoring droughts, because then you get out in transition. And if you get out in transition, who's going to step in front of LeBron or AD in an open court situation? Nobody smart. And most guys won't do it at all because they know that they'll either get in foul trouble or they get ran over and embarrassed on a dunk or something. So they're not going to probably step in front of them. But the Lakers have got to keep playing defense, keep that transition strong, get Vincent, Dinwiddie, and Reeves going as much as they possibly can, and they'll be in great shape no matter who they play. If it's not Denver, that would be great. But if it is Denver, it's Denver, and that's the situation they're in based on where they are in the standings. So we'll see what happens. I'm interested to see. Please leave your thoughts, comments. Please subscribe, guys. That's all I ever ask. Just hit that subscribe button real quick before you leave. That's all I ever ask. If you want to hit the like button, great. I appreciate that too. But the subscribe button is what helps so much with growth and opportunity and people actually being able to see it. Thank you so much.